we'll review next time. And was there any public comment?
Yeah, we didn't receive anything, unless we have anyone in the audience who wants to offer public comment.
Ken, do you have something to say? This is your chance. So next thing is project overview to date with Ms. Lori Oliver. Joseph.
All right. Good evening, advisory committee members. It's good to see you guys all again. It's been a little while since we've met. We're enjoying your summer, and I just wanted to do just a really brief overview of the project to date. Anais and Beth are here tonight, and they'll be going over more specifics of some parts of the project, but I just wanted to just do a brief overview of everything so far. So we kicked this off in January of this year, so we're 6 months into the project now. We've held 4 advisory committee meetings prior to this one. First meeting was the kickoff to introduce the project. The second meeting was to review the draft housing needs analysis. The third meeting is when we provided an update and feedback on the annual town meeting, and we completed a SWOT analysis. And then the last meeting, the fourth meeting, was to discuss the residential land needs portion of the housing needs analysis. And so tonight, we're going to get an update on the outreach efforts to date and the draft vision statement for the 50-year plan. So all in all, everything is going great with the project. We've had lots of feedback from the community. I will be also staffing a booth this weekend at the Farmers Market from 9 till 2 to just spread the word about the project and to hopefully get some feedback on this draft vision statement that you guys are going to see tonight. So with that, I will turn it over to Beth. Yes.
Sorry about this, but I remember last meeting we had some discussions about land that was previously brought into the urban growth boundary, but we didn't see that we could develop it. Would that be, this was your question, we could take it back out and substitute it for something else?
Well, my question was, there was talk about possibly approaching donors, asking them to voluntarily, not voluntarily, move themselves from B, that their lands could be added in replacement.
Right, we were talking about that substitution.
And I actually asked a question, which you guys were going to get back to us on. I didn't believe we could do that unless they voluntarily agreed to it. So I thought we might have a problem. They were going to check with their attorney to find out.
These ladies or the guys?
I
think it was the guys.
Guys.
Yeah, it's a different team. However, yeah, Beth has an opinion, and Beth does housing needs analysis all the time.
Thanks, Beth, for knowing everything.
I'm not going to promise you I know everything, because I don't. And so when I have talked to state staff, Department of Land Conservation and Development staff, DLCD staff, about this exact question, the answer was, if the land is within the UGB but outside the city limits, so still in county zoning, then their interpretation is that there's not a Measure 49 claim on that. And so I should step back and framed it. The concern is, if you take land outside the UGB, if you just move it outside without the landowner's consent, is, do they have a Measure 49 claim that they can push? And what a Measure 49 claim is, yeah, no worries, is, this was a measure passed a number of years ago, where if a government changes, I think it's more than the zoning, but changes the land use regulations on your land such that your land then has less potential value. So imagine if you were zoned for commercial and now you're zoned only for like public or agricultural. You can see how that decreases the value of your land. Then you can sue the government and either require that they reinstate the zoning or ask for money to be compensated. And so imagine if you take a bunch of land outside of your UGB, or you make a change that actually leads to a Measure 49 claim and it's successful, that can cost the whatever government is being sued a lot of money.
Ah.
And so in discussing this with state staff, with the LCD staff, their opinion is, and they deal with Measure 49 claims, across the state, is if you're not changing the zoning, if you're moving the UGB but not changing the zoning, then there's no Measure 49 claim. Now, attorneys are very, very smart. And so that is what they think.
Guarantees.
It is not a guarantee. I would certainly consult with the city's attorney before
I
taking such
did
an
do
action.
that actually, Beth, and he agreed. He agreed with your interpretation. He didn't think there would be a claim.
But that's a concern that I had for a long time with
Mhm.
UGB land swaps.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, thank you.
Thanks, Annie. You can go now. Thank you.
However you'd like.
hop in on the schedule.
So I know you've had a number of meetings where you're kind of jumping between scales of and levels of information. So we're going to kind of step back and take a look at the things that make us feel good, the soft, joyful public involvement, community engagement, and outreach activities that were going on over the last couple of months, and review the draft vision statement that came out of that. So I will provide a quick update on where did we go, who we talked to, what we did. I'll report back on some of the key ideas and the key themes that we heard through all of our outreach all of our outreach activities. And then I'll present the draft 50-year vision statement entirely in draft form and here for us to discuss, dissect it, take it apart, put it back together however we wish. So we like to just keep this schedule up, this short-term schedule up. I don't know, Beth, if you have anything you want to say about the schedule specifically, or just kind of where we're aiming.
So yes, what I will say is that we'll be coming to you in August with some more technical information, sort of akin to the housing needs analysis, but on the economic development side, where I know we're bringing you a buildable lands inventory and we're going to bring you a forecast. And it's going to be what it is. We're going to talk about, well, some people find that stuff exciting. Some people,
I do find it exciting.
okay, we'll be
So
excited.
creative though, how you guys come up with that assessment.
Well, the interesting creative thing is we're going to take the SWOT that we did back in May, I think it was, and start taking that apart a little bit and say, talk about, say, small town atmosphere. It's something that's a strength of Scappoose. Well, what does small town atmosphere mean? Like, what does it mean in Scappoose? I know what it means in other communities, but what does it mean here? What are you trying to preserve here? And look at a bunch of the things that the city identified as strengths or weaknesses and take them apart a little bit better so that we understand what the issues are, so that as we're characterizing the city's comparative and competitive advantages in the economic opportunities analysis, we can do a better job of it than saying small town atmosphere. And so that is all going to lead us when we come back in November to revisiting some of this. We'll have a draft economic opportunities analysis for you. It'll be 75 to 100 pages of technical information. I know. And you're going to be excited to read all about it. And some people, I don't know, they may not read the whole thing, and that's okay. But the important thing here is that, we get our forecast right. We're characterizing the city's advantages and disadvantages and talking about potential growth industries and the types of land that they need. And then in the end, do you have enough of that kind of land to accommodate expected growth over the next 20 years? And once we've got that down, then in December, well, actually now it's January, we're going to come back and talk to you about other land needs. So other land needs are things like parkland, land for school, where we'll talk to the school district, land for other public facilities, that kind of stuff. And that's going to set us up so that we know then how much land do you need for housing, how much land do you need for employment, how much land do you need for other stuff, and do you have enough land in your UGB? If you don't, what are we going to do about it? And that's going to be the exciting discussion through 2023. Yes, sir.
A question. So I thought, though, we can have all these desires, but I thought we're still kind of boxed in by the Oregon State population growth estimates, or are we not?
Oh, no, you have to work for the housing needs analysis with the population forecast.
Oh.
The employment forecast is different, but you still have to have substantial evidence. So if we wanted to say Scappoose is going to grow by 8,000 new employees, well, we have to have substantial evidence to prove why that is. And so if you think about it, for the economic development piece, it's a red face test. And can I, your consultant, genuinely get up and say what we think is the forecast and provide enough substantial evidence? And my face hasn't turned red like, Pinocchio with my nose growing. So it's a test of reasonableness. So it's a little different than the housing.
So that's for the employment end
Mhm.
of land needs. We're not, so the employment end of land needs is kind of, can you substantiate, what can you?
And you might want to talk into your
I'm
microphone.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Get a little closer, is that better?
I suspect so.
So the employment part is more like we could show the airport and say, hey, we're expected to have several thousand jobs there over years.
I think you need to do more than that.
Oh.
So I don't want to give you the idea that we're going to be talking about lots of thousands of jobs. There'll be some thousands of jobs that we're talking about. We'll present a range of forecasts and why we think they're reasonable. And then we get feedback about what are we missing.
And so based on that, then we would look at our available lands and
Mhm.
see if we have enough lands to meet those needs. Okay.
Yep.
I got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring us back up to the high level and talk. It's okay, and talk about the 50-year plan vision process, which really is a framework and the guidance for this whole project, this process, these processes of developing the HNA, the EOA, et cetera. So yeah, and this is the overall project schedule as well. As we know, it is a multi-phase project that will span the next 3 years. Community visioning will be wrapping up this fall. And then as Beth mentioned, the exercise of the HNA and the EOA will continue through 2023. That will be alongside updates to the comprehensive plan, updates to the development code, all of your implementing mechanisms, and then slated for adoption in mid 2024. So there's really quite a bit on the docket over the next couple of years. Okay, so while the housing needs analysis is going on in the background and the economic opportunities analysis is going on in the background, we have also been doing a lot of outreach and engagement on the ground to help develop this 50-year plan vision statement that will essentially give legs to all of the work that's been going on. I know some of you or most of you have participated in some form or fashion in any one of these activities. We have had an online vision survey up since March. We had a number of community conversations, and of course we had our annual town meeting workshop. So I'll talk quickly about kind of what all of those led to, and then we can review the draft vision statement. So thank you all, of course, for those who showed up to the annual town meeting in April and then attended the workshop. It was really quite well attended. I think we had about 80 residents and community members that were gathered for the annual town meeting. And then we had about 40 to 50 or so that stayed for the workshop. The 50-year plan was the kind of the main event at the annual town meeting. And there was a presentation on the 50-year plan and the whole process. And then the workshop activity was, I thought, really well attended and interactive. We had large, kind of high quality base maps on a number of tables, and groups were working, or tables were working in groups of 6 to 8. And they had stickers and markers to identify various different types of land needs or uses or transportation connections or corridors, etc. All of the maps have been digitized, and so we will be using those throughout this process. And all of the comments that we got back on those big comment sheets that were available at each of the table were also kind of compiled into this overall summary of all of our engagement and outreach. I like to just kind of add some photos to refresh everyone's memory about exactly what we were doing, and just kind of what the activity looked like. So yeah, we were really excited about how that turned out, and we thought that the feedback that we got at the very end of that workshop was really pretty high quality and very nuanced, and really interesting information from the community. In addition, we also hosted, well, you all as stakeholder advisory committee members, as well as city staff, helped run and host community conversations. So overall, we collected notes from 8 community conversations that together engaged about 100 people. We had a community conversation with the Parks and Recreation Committee, the Scappoose Bay Watershed Council, the Public Library Board, the Scappoose Public Library Board of Directors, South Columbia County Chamber of Commerce, the Columbia County Habitat for Humanity, Scappoose Foursquare, the Community and Senior Center, and then I also know, Brian, you hosted a community conversation with a group of local business owners. So thank you once again so much for the lift in doing that and submitting your notes to us. This is really kind of a place where we get a lot of really good feedback on all of these ideas, and kind of what we want to see in this community in the future. So this is really a source of amazing and high quality feedback. And then, of course, we also had our online vision survey. This was concurrent with the community conversations. It was on while we had the annual town meeting. We closed it down at the end of June. We had 178 survey responses. 8 of those do include the notes that were submitted to us from the community conversations. And the survey was promoted through a variety of different mechanisms and avenues that the city uses to put out information. So that includes the monthly citywide newsletter. It was posted to the project webpage, and then it was also posted out through social media channels and multiple community listservs. Okay, so as a refresher, what was the purpose of all of this outreach engagement? And what were the 2 key questions that we were really focusing the discussion around? Was first, today, what makes Scappoose special? And in the future, what do we want to see? So we created these little word clouds. They're kind of nice to look at and get a visual understanding, some visual cues of what people were saying when we were having these discussions. And so, hold on, let me just pull out my notes because I have some more ideas here that I want to expand upon. So the words that come up here in this word cloud, just as a note, include all of the feedback we got through the online survey, all of the feedback that we got through the community conversations, and then all of the key ideas that came up through the annual town meeting workshop. So a lot of different places is where all of this information came through. And so, a couple things to note, or items or key themes that came up when asking this particular question. We saw a lot of emphasis on increasing tourism, having less traffic or better traffic management, limits to growth and development, preservation of greenery and open space, greater access to natural areas, greater housing affordability and opportunities, more community amenities and resources, better access to those community resources, more public transport options, retail options, local businesses, connected pedestrian infrastructure, well-maintained infrastructure. The sense of community here was definitely emphasized over and over in most of the conversations we were having. Local economic development, and then low crime and safety as well. So just kind of main elements. Yeah. Oh, a question. I'm sorry. I thought you had a
Oh,
question.
no. Kim, you have your hand up?
I do. Thank you, Lori. Hi, everyone. Kim Holmes, representing the Parks and Rec Committee. Sorry, I'm not there tonight. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, so stayed home. So listening to all of the different ways that we've connected with community members, I understand that doing survey work can be incredibly difficult getting a sufficient sample. So it seems like between all 3 methods, the town hall, the community conversations, and the survey, and you average maybe 8,000 people in a town, we've got about 4% of the population that has provided some input. And again, that's not too bad in terms of doing a survey with such a large and diverse sample. So I'm really happy with those numbers, but how does that pair with other communities that you've worked with? Is that pretty average for participation and feedback?
Yeah, I would honestly say it kind of comes down to what the scope of the project is. And I think for this scope of project, we're actually looking at really good outreach. I think that the kind of approximate tally was, yeah, just about over 500 yeah, well over 500 touches with the community. The survey is certainly a qualitative survey. It's not a statistically significant survey or anything like that. But I would say generally this feels very on par with what I've seen with other scopes of work for this kind of process.
Great. And I would say too, like in doing survey work myself, like quality over quantity, I think is much more valuable. And the fact that we had so many community conversations is really encouraging.
Yeah, I agree. And really, it does kind of lie on the stakeholder advisory committee's ability and desire to help with that. So thank you again so much for doing that. It's so much easier for all of us to host one than one of us to host 10. So, and I'm so sorry. My apologies. When I was listing out kind of those bullet items, I was looking at my wrong set of notes. And as I was speaking, I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. I was speaking to the next slide as to what we want to see in Scappoose in the future. So I'm sorry if there was a bit of disjointedness there. But here, what makes Scappoose special today, there is actually a bit of overlap between the two. So I'll just share kind of what the bullets are here, and you'll be able to compare. So of course, small town feel, number one thing, friendly and close-knit community, access to nature and the great outdoors, Scappooses access to the greater region, affordability, natural beauty, cleanliness, community events, family friendly, quality of life, strong economy, great schools, history and heritage, safety and low crime, and quietness. So some of those kind of ideas made its way into the word cloud. But, all of this is really, as I had mentioned when we were doing our SWOT analysis, is all about building a language bank and understanding how people describe the things that they love about their community. So it all feeds into the development of the vision statement. Then here, what about Scappoose would you like to change in the future? So my first list of bullets actually spoke to this slide. And they do build upon some of the ideas that people started talking about in terms of what they like about Scappoose today. So you see a lot of elements of what we like today, we want to see in the future. So that comes down to safety and low crime. It comes down to preserving nature and access to nature, preserving affordability, things like that. Jeanette?
Hello. So I guess my question is, I didn't see anything in the report. I know that there was a third party or contractor that was possibly contacted to connect with the community that speaks other languages, underserved communities, and wondering if there's something that's, I guess there's going to be a survey, excuse me, a survey or an event that's going to be reaching that community, or have you done that already?
Do you want to talk about?
Hi, Jeanette. This is Isaac.
Hi, Isaac.
Hi. So where we're at with that is last time we had spoken, we were going to reach out to some organizing groups in Portland and around Columbia County to try to get some input and feedback about what groups exist. And we're still waiting to hear back if we can find those groups particularly. So we're still working through the process on how, if and how we're going to do that to make sure we're doing that in a conscientious manner to get the best results and make sure, that we're behaving with the utmost tact and professionalism as we move forward with that, just because it's new to us and
Right,
we need to be
I
careful.
completely understand, and I just, my concern would be to get too ahead of the plan without getting their input. That's just my thought.
Jeanette, I think that we were all, as members of the committee, we were all, it was presented to us to reach out to the groups that we're associated with and get that information. So I think that you, as one of the committee members, could have reached out and got the information that you're seeking from those groups. So that could have been
Is that
included.
Christine? Yeah, Christine, yeah, so I was, I'm not sure if you know about this conversation, but I was contacted by staff, and what I understood that there was a third party contractor that was going to be brought on because they have done this type of work before.
Oh, I didn't realize that we had a contractor
Yeah.
to do those I thought we were supposed to.
Yes, certainly. I think the clarification was that when we had talked about that, we had potentially contacts to help us do translation at in-person events, and that was the discussion we were having, as opposed to a contractor that was doing more diverse community outreach.
Okay,
Brian,
I'm sorry, that was my understanding, that that's what part of the job that was also, they're used to doing that type of work. So that's what I thought, they were also there, not just the translation part.
question, are we still accepting the missionaires space? Or is that closed at this?
Yeah, well, there's a new survey that I'll speak to in a moment, but we did close the vision survey down at
That's
the
what I
end of
thought.
June. Yes, yes. Yeah, and so just to clarify, we had, I think, a couple months ago talked about, yeah, having at least translation services available at the annual town meeting, and other things like that. But then I think city staff.
Yeah, and I guess, and just the overarching thought is, what is number one? What is the need? Is there a need? And it would have implications on all of our other committees as well. And so that's what Isaac is saying, that we want to be thoughtful about how we roll this out. Obviously, we want to contact our community members um, and involve them in this process. But there is money in the budget to have translation services if there is a need. So again, we're still looking into that. Absolutely.
Okay, if we can have that conversation, if I'm more than happy to have that outside this meeting.
Okay, so given what we heard through all of those outreach efforts, and then essentially the key themes that arose around these two central questions, we have developed a draft vision statement that we hope echoes the narrative and the language that we were hearing through all of those methods. So it is in your packet. I was going to just slowly read it out loud, and then we can essentially open it up for discussion, thoughts, reflections, feedback. Overall, yeah.
Sorry, I need my own microphone. It's the very, very last page in your packet.
It's big. I have a bunch over here.
Okay,
The drum roll, I mean,
a drum roll.
I feel like oh, it's big.
It's big,
Oh,
yeah.
It's bigger
So
than
it's 4 paragraphs.
it's a lot.
So I'll read through all of them, and then I'll speak also just afterwards a bit about the 2016 community vision that the city has and how this may interact with the 50-year plan vision. Okay, so we start with, yes, thank you. Over the next 50 years, Scappoose will grow into a community with friendly and connected neighborhoods. Scappoos's small town feel is enhanced through a connection to people and a celebration of place. Neighborhoods are nestled into the landscape and built to ensure families can live, work, learn, and thrive in Scappoose across multiple generations. The community invests in its youth through excellent schools and modern facilities. The school district connects families and works in tandem with the city to expand access to community resources, programs, and amenities for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds. Neighborhoods include a diversity of housing choices with unrivaled access to natural areas and a network of local walking and biking trails. They remain safe, friendly, and accessible for all. Over the next 50 years, Scappoose will grow into a community with a strong and innovative economy. Scappoose invests in a lively and attractive downtown core. The pedestrian-friendly mixed-use environment draws in small, locally owned businesses that provide a wide variety of services and retail options. The hyper-local quality and character of Scapoose's downtown and heritage industries is complemented by its position as a hub for world-class manufacturing, innovation, and technology. OMEC and PCC provide innovative facilities that promote workforce training and create synergies for furthering education, research and development, and clean industry. The duality of local and national economic engines provides sustainable living wage jobs and opportunities for investment back into the community. In Scappoose, the candle burns bright. Over the next 50 years, Scappoose will grow into a community with unparalleled access to the great outdoors. Scappoose's lush forests, waterways, and open spaces are intentionally preserved through clustered development and the enhancement of key community amenities like the CZ Trail, Veterans Memorial Park, and Chapman Landing. Linear trails along riparian corridors connect neighborhoods north to south, and there is a balance between improving access to outdoor recreational opportunities and conserving natural spaces for the protection of habitats and ecosystems. A culture of stewardship and an eye towards a changing climate ensures development is thoughtful, responsive, adaptive, and resilient. Over the next 50 years, Scappoose will grow into a community with well-planned infrastructure. Scappoose boasts modern and reliable public facilities and services that support carefully planned growth. Infrastructure improvements are built in tandem with development and are built for redundancy in the face of natural hazards. A connected road network aids in local circulation and relieves traffic along Highway 30. Geographic barriers like the railroad and Highway 30 are overcome through safety improvements and upgraded pedestrian and bicycle facilities that provide safe and efficient travel routes. Along with enhanced transit, local trail systems blend with the pedestrian bicycle network, promoting transportation options across town that are safe, accessible, and enjoyable for all. Okay, so that is where it's at in draft form. Before we kind of open it up for general thoughts and feedback and discussion, I did just want to kind of pay credence to the fact that the city has a great 2016 vision or a community vision from 2016. And I would say that some of the key differences that we're seeing between the vision that is being developed for the 50-year plan and the 2016 community vision is that this is essentially building upon some key concepts in that 2016 vision and is more specifically guiding some of the technical land use focused work that's happening in the 50-year plan. So for example, the 2016 community vision speaks to the idea of smart growth. The 50-year plan is exactly that, is a mechanism for that concept. So I would say this 50-year plan vision statement, it's a little bit more specific. It's a little bit more land use based focused than some of the more programmatic elements that you see or that you hear in the 2016 community vision. So just a little disclaimer. Yeah, I mean, I think the key question for you as a committee is, are we on the right track? Is there anything missing? Does this feel like it echoes what you've heard? Or is there something that's missing from it? So yeah, we're happy to hear your feedback and your reflections on it.
I want to live in this town. This sounds fantastic. I think in this town, there's unicorns and rainbows.
I think there's 2 unicorns,
Yeah.
mini rainbows.
2 unicorns and rainbows.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Kim, please.
Yeah, so I think you guys have done a really great job distilling the comments into 4 key buckets around the friendliness in the neighborhoods and the economy and the access to outdoors and the infrastructure. So in here, kind of as we look to operationalize those things, you guys named 3 kind of external partners, right? The school district, OMIC, and PCC. Are we going to look for them to like sign on to this or have some agreement or buy-in to this? Because I guess in my mind, without having that type of alignment, it kind of limits the potential, right? Like the city has only so much influence in these areas without those partners.
We do have Craig on the line. Craig, do you have feedback for us on this?
Sorry, I've been trying to find my microphone. Actually, I thought it looked fine.
Perfect. So you're okay with us assuming that you'll provide innovative facilities that promote workforce training and create synergies for furthering education, research, and development and clean industry?
As long as it's between both OMIC R&D and OMIC training through PCC, absolutely.
Yep. Perfect. Yes. Thank you.
So I guess my point is beyond kind of the input of the stakeholders on this group, like, is there something that we need to get in like a more official capacity in terms of approval and buy-in on this? Just something to think about as we go through this process.
Kim, I would also just to respond a bit further. The process itself, naming the school district, albeit not saying the Scappoose school district, but identifying public land needs such as school needs is a part of this process. And so I think, kind of naming the school district in the vision statement makes sense in that the process looks at school land needs. I don't know if we need something more formal per se, but clearly through the economic opportunities analysis, we will certainly see the role of OMEC and PCC in both forecasts and trends. So I think generally speaking, we're calling out the players that are more clearly engaged in identifying land needs and understanding future housing and economic development trends and what that means for the community. Lori said that we don't necessarily need a more formalized agreement per se, but yeah.
And speaking on top of that, we will be talking when we get to other land needs with the school district to understand what their land needs are. And they'll have a hard time expressing what their needs are for 50 years because of course they do. That's a very long period. They're not forecasting for 50 years usually. And we will be doing things like being in touch with OMIC and touring OMIC and that kind of thing. So at the less official sorts of ways, we are talking with those stakeholders.
And a way in which this vision statement essentially gets codified, like how this gets implemented, is really through your comprehensive plan and your development code. It guides the economic opportunities analysis, it guides the housing needs analysis, it guides the exercise of identifying urban reserves, urban growth boundary, but it also really does play a part in how policies are crafted or revised in your comprehensive plan. And then that dictates how the development code is modified as well.
It's a great question, Kim. Thanks.
Thanks.
Under a strong and innovative economy, on the second line, it's provide a wide variety of services and retail options. Retail options, I've personally tried to do this through my commercial development. Reality is, for 15 years of attempting this, I don't believe it's going to happen. And I think between Fred Meyer, Walmart, and Amazon, all retail, very, very unlikely in this atmosphere. The only places that can really do small retail are places like Northwest Portland, where it's a true destination where people drive in from all over to get. I don't know if that has to be stricken from here. I'd hate to see policies geared towards trying to attract that. It's, in my opinion, it's years of experience since Jeff was trying to do this, 17 now, that it's not going to happen.
So that's a very interesting point, and perhaps we should talk about that more when we get to the economic opportunities
I'm not
analysis.
sure- Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I'm not sure, like I said, if it's staying in here or not, but I think I wouldn't want to see policies based on this idea that we're going to bring in all these small retail places. I've tried.
What if it does happen?
well, I mean,
So exciting.
this is an aspiration,
Mhm.
so not bad to have aspirations. But you know, if you came and asked me, should we be putting a lot of effort into getting small retail? I would probably have a different opinion than that. And my opinion, of course, only matters so much. I'm not you guys.
Well, I guess
decision
my
makers here.
question is, having this in here, does that trigger policies to try to make it happen?
No,
Okay. Then
you can aspire to it.
we
And
can aspire, that's fine. I'll still aspire to it.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love it.
I mean, you know,
Tried.
yeah, certainly. And I guess maybe the hope and the aspiration here is that there will be a variety of factors that may change that reality, that may make that sort of thing maybe slightly more viable in 30 years from now. So I think having it in the vision statement identifies or just it's clear that there will be, you know, maybe with more rooftops or maybe with a different, you know, slightly different demographics because of different types of jobs. Like there may be some changes in the future that this vision statement can capture for those aspirations.
Ben, do you have a question?
Yeah,
Oh, Len.
in your,
Len.
I'm sorry. In your friendly and connected neighborhood phrasing, you use the phrase that for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds, you're missing a word. It's called race. The Federal Housing FHA director would look at this and go, absolutely not. Okay. This is a very non-gentrified community as displayed by your survey, and we can't ignore the process.
I don't
Lynn?
think that's an intentional oversight in any way, Lynn. Which phrase are you looking at in this, so we make sure that we get that in there?
Okay, hold on.
The third sentence, if you go up. to the communities-
Page 7 of your housing report. Okay.
Not in the housing.
In the vision,
We're working on vision.
I'm looking at the report she just read.
Yeah, it's the second to last sentence, or third. The school district connects families and works in tandem with the city to expand access to community resources, programs, and amenities for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds.
So you're suggesting adding race? there.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
we need to add gender also.
Not that type of document per se, but you know, certainly open to.
If it's concerning housing, it's going to be concerning the federal housing rules and and regulations. Okay, I was a lender in the business for a long time.
This is just our goal. We're not necessarily, not working to execute on this. Just a summary of what our dream would be in 50 years when we all sit down here again, review it, to see how well we did.
I would hope that the 50-year plan process does execute the vision for you in some capacity.
You will still be here in 50 years to look at it, so you might all not.
I have a question. Sure. It sounds like this isn't that exact. On the unparalleled access to great outdoors, it talks about an eye towards climate. I believe in climate change, but I don't know if this, I'm sorry. So under unparalleled access to the great outdoors towards the bottom, talks about culture, stewardship, and eye towards changing climate, ensures development, thoughtful, responsive, adaptive, and resilient. And I do believe in climate change, but I'm not sure this is an appropriate place for that. Doesn't really sound B, I don't know what other people's thoughts are, but it seems
This is in,
political,
yeah,
political to me, and that's, you know, I would want to avoid if we could, because I wouldn't want to anger people necessarily.
there was an element in the scope and process for this project of looking at, later down the road and development code updates, looking at floodplain management, riparian corridors, mitigating the effects of high water events and high heat events, et cetera, and then also climate change. So
Okay, no,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I just
Get
would
into
hate to
that,
see it, people be offended by it. I know, that's fine. Okay, thank you.
Christine, if you want to just see who has questions, I think there's a number of questions out here and maybe call on
Jennifer.
I can't read that far. I'm so sorry.
Jennifer Anderson with Habitat for Humanity.
Thank you.
Maybe kind of picky. In the first paragraph, it says neighborhoods include a diversity of housing choices. I would assume that is providing housing in a variety that would be affordable for an income range, a wide income range. So that seems to go better with, I mean, if it were my document, I'd put neighborhoods include a diversity of housing choices and then jump up to the second line that are built to ensure families can live, work, learn, and thrive in Scappoose across multiple generations. And then the other sentence, I would switch the two and put neighborhoods are nestled into the landscape with rivaled access to natural areas.
I follow exactly what you're saying. Thank you.
Shell?
Thank you. First off, thank you for developing this. This is great. And that comes from a person who doesn't really have a huge amount of patience for big vision statements. So thank you for putting so much work into it. I probably just had one question. The third sentence in the strong and innovative economy, hyper local quality. Yeah, don't know what that.
Good question, Michelle.
Yeah, it might be unclear. I think maybe the intent or the concept that's trying to be captured here is that there, at least through the community outreach, there was an emphasis on wanting to maintain just the local character of businesses and goods that are created in Scappoose. Yeah, I think that could certainly be reworked if it's feeling a little fuzzy for sure.
And,
Yeah.
certainly just a comment.
No, that's great.
rather than a
That's what we're
statement.
here for, so.
In the last sentence in that paragraph also, and it's probably because I really don't know what's going on with the candle, but
It's going to be painted.
it'll be painted. So
And there's a design for a neon.
It'll be lovely one day.
it will burn bright. Got it. Okay. Right now it's not too bright.
It'll burn bright again. Yeah,
burn.
so it's going to be rehabilitated basically. So we're hoping by the end of this summer that it should look kind of more new again and burn bright again.
And burn. Yes.
Yes, this is Deb Jacob. I'm senior planner with Columbia County, and tying into a kind of like what Santiago, Janet, right? Jeanette and Brian and Jennifer said, I think it would be beneficial for the city to reach out to these other communities out there, the non-English language speakers. I think that will be critical because that is one way that you can ensure the demographics are accurately reflected. They might have more opportunities for more kinds of local retail, communities, micro retail for their particular community and for their needs and stuff like that. So I think I would encourage the city to, like you said, you're waiting for them, maybe just like put the fire under their butt to like get it going here, because I think it's critical. Because our demographics are changing faster than we can even imagine they are. And I think in the 50 years, that's a reality. And I think a lot of these other questions for affordable housing, new communities, retails if the city can address them at this point, I think it should be really, that's my input.
Thank you. I do have a, oh, sorry, just based off what she said, we don't know who made comments for the community conversation, though. There wasn't a demographic survey done on the particular person who did survey. So how do we know that everyone wasn't included?
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's hard to start in very qualitative surveys, start asking questions where you can't really do anything with the data. Like, I don't know what it would tell us if we had certain demographics captured or not captured, if it just baseline isn't representative of the community.
I don't know if that's like, I don't know that it's okay to single people out specifically.
So I think, Christine, the important thing here is that non-English speakers are unlikely to have taken the survey because it's in English. And so the idea is if you outreach to groups in their native language, then you can get input that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So that's I think the overarching issue.
So if I had a community conversation, there was a Spanish speaking individual.
Well, were you speaking in Spanish and were they able to participate?
And that's the rule. That's what I wanted to understand. It's only for non-English speaking people.
I'm not saying
Not dual.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you have non-English speaking residents of the community, then there's a barrier to them having participated in the survey at least, because it's in English. And so how do you lower that barrier so that they could?
What about Russian and Chinese?
Well, I picked on Spanish because it was one that I knew. So I think the question is, what community should we be reaching out to more, if any?
Okay.
And that's the question on the table.
Okay, thank you for
Correct.
clarifying. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we did actually have 2 people waiting online.
Can't read their names. So
It's Jeanette and Kim.
Yeah, thanks. To Brian's point about the use of the term climate change, I agree. I'm tired of that being politicized. I'm a proponent of policies that take that into consideration, but if it would be beneficial to remove that term and look more broadly just at resiliency, really focus on resiliency. That's what the UN has done and other organizations. And resiliency really also does addresses disaster risk mitigation, which I think covers not only climate change, but some of the other areas that we might be at risk of with earthquake and other things. And then also resiliency would cover things like caring for our community in terms of mental health and community building perspective as well, right? We are beginning to understand that there's a strong connection between mental health, happiness, connection to outdoors, and all of that. So resiliency might also capture that. So just a suggestion if we need to kind of pivot from a more polarizing term of climate change.
That's a good
Thank you, Kim.
suggestion.
Jeanette?
Jeanette?
Yeah, so I'm just going to answer a couple of things that before what I was going to say. So I guess just to finish that conversation where you guys are talking about race and other cultures and other languages, it's basically being inclusive and to include all. And so I think that's being mainly when you're trying to reach out to a community that that doesn't speak the language or they do speak English but prefer it in another language. It's just feeling welcome. So and if I myself, I was noticing in the pictures, I can see the pictures that you guys took. There was obviously no person of color in there. So I'm just that's what my observation. But my comment was or request is I'm not sure if it's just going to be shown in the economic report, but what I was reading in the report where you guys had the question about what about SCAPUs, what would you like to see change in the future and what can improve? a lot of the comments were kind of conflicting because they said limit to growth and development, limit to housing, but then at the same time they want to attract more businesses and uh, and have um, more housing, and so or what is it, variety of housing. So when you guys are going to come up with this report, are you guys also going to come up with some type of ideas, or, and I know that you guys have done this for similar communities like Scappoose, and do you provide ideas on how you can make that a growth, but yet keep it, like feel it nestled and small? Also visuals, would you be able to show any visuals of similar communities that are just like Scappoose that have really, um, established a small town feel, but still growing?
And so Jeanette, first of all, I don't expect we would have visuals and any community that's just like Scappoose. I'll say that any community we compare Scappoose to will certainly that would cause controversy. Scappoose isn't like that community. It's like this other community and those kind of things. So we don't tend to do a lot of comparisons among communities, and this isn't a project where we're looking at what will the future look like in terms of urban design. So we wouldn't be including any urban design sort of visuals for this.
But no ideas of what other communities have done? I'm just curious.
Well, and then there's the question of how do you keep us the small town atmosphere? Well, before I begin to try to answer that, I think there's some questions of what does a small town atmosphere, what does it mean in Scappoose? And so I think once we've had some of those conversations, which I expect we'll have at the next meeting, then as we're developing the policies, and this is going to take some iteration and take a while to get to the end of this, where we'll be looking at policies of how do you keep the things that people value most, and how do you balance the desire for Scappoose to stay the same and the recognition that Scappoose is going to grow. And so I don't have an answer to that right now. And I just wanted to say something.
Yeah, I guess I do want to say that the conundrum, the pinch points that we're seeing in the feedback that we're getting in the community about preserving open space, like preserving natural areas, limiting growth and development but maintaining housing affordability, and expanding business and retail options. Those types of pinch points are pretty rampant across the state. It is actually not a problem that just Scappoose has. So many communities are dealing with the growing pains of growth and development. And how do we balance this desire for keeping our town feeling small and connected and neighborly while also accommodating housing that can house our grandkids and our aging parents and things like that? I think where you will kind of see that start getting fleshed out is in the development of new and or revised comprehensive plan policies, where the best we can do is try and balance those multiple competing objectives in a way that honors both sentiments and desires, but also moves us forward and also moves us in a way that mitigates the effects of change. I was saying this to City Council yesterday, but the one thing that we know is constant, the only thing that is constant is change, and how we manage change is really what planning comes down to. So I think that the duality, we speak to the duality here in strong and innovative economy, attracting regional and national economic engines while also knowing that there's a lot of local local economic development happening here that's really important to just the character of Scappoose. So I think the vision statement tries to speak to that. We talk about clustered development in as our ability to preserve natural space and green space. So the vision statement speaks a little bit to that, but I do think that you'll see that being played out more clearly when it comes to updating comprehensive plan goals and policies.
And I'll also add on that some of the issues in here aren't going to be addressed in the 50-year plan. So keep in mind what the 50-year plan is. It's about land use. It's largely about economic development and housing need. Things like your parks master plan are certainly going to get much more in detail about how do we preserve our open space and support that value of open space in the future. Or if we started talking about transportation planning, this is not a transportation planning project. And yet one of the most important things in Scappoose in a lot of ways is your transportation system with Highway 30 running through it. And so there's going to have to be additional projects where these issues are identified here or reinforced here and addressed in additional projects in the future.
Thank you, Beth.
You got a lot of work to do. Everybody does.
It's pretty fantastic. Brian?
Hi, again. Back to the climate change verbiage in there. I'm fine with changing it to resilience.
Noted that.
But also an alternative, and I don't know if we want to go there, whatever the group feels best, is we could say something like increased flooding and other weather events. Whatever the group wants, but I just know that there's so many conservative folk that I know that second you put verbiage in like changing climate, you're going to lose them. The discussion is over.
Yeah, point well taken. And I think we had some good complementary language that we could swap out.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Quiet Bunny?
Well, one thing I'd like to see addressed somehow, and it's maybe not part of the vision statement, is more cooperation between the different government agencies in the entire county. Because it's the total county population versus land size is so small
Mm-hmm.
that I think we could accomplish a lot more.
Well, you're going to have to propose that collaboration, Jeff.
Kim?
Yeah, I think the point that Jeff just raised, though, kind of gets at the first point I made about the third parties being identified in there. So maybe we could just speak to a spirit of collaboration with our partners, whether they're private or public in some way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly. We speak a little bit to that spirit of collaboration here, where we talk about the school system working in tandem with the city, but maybe there's an opportunity to expand that a bit further and just talk about, spirit of collaboration among jurisdictions or agencies.
That's one thing that
Hey,
Tyler.
sorry, I can't raise my hand here, but this is Casey Garrett with Columbia County. I'm just called in. I had a link problem. I could respond a little bit to that. I've been just trying to listen, but
Yeah, please.
that's one thing I've noticed in this conversation is the county being an obvious partner, and whether it be by the end of this 50-year planning process, the county adopts a resolution to support the city of Scappooses 50-year plan, being an obvious economic partner in your planning efforts. So we're here and willing to support these efforts. So if that helps this conversation along at all or is worth taking note of, then please do. And then one other small piece, so I don't just have to interrupt, a technical little weird fix. CZ Trail, please call it Crown Z Trail. That's the official name. So we're just pushing for that
Perfect.
to
Thank
try
you.
to label it Crown Z Trail.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I have a question for folks if they're willing to entertain a question for me.
I love questions.
Okay, so will you go to the economic development one? So when I read this, my thought was downtown core.
No, we don't have that.
Okay, and so, all right, I'm not wrong. And so I started talking to one of my colleagues who was a planning manager in the city of Beaverton, which doesn't have a downtown core and has two highways going through it. And so how much should we be thinking about in the economic opportunities analysis? What does the city want to try to do to achieve a downtown, to achieve a center?
We talk about it a lot.
Okay, so it's important in the community. And so maybe not at the first meeting, but maybe at the second meeting of the economic opportunities analysis, we should bring some ideas about what is it that has been successful in other communities, because I know Beaverton's done a lot of thinking about this. To that, I'm not saying we can solve that in this process. In fact, it's a really hard thing to solve. But what we can do is set up other processes, you know, future planning projects that with a goal of beginning to solve that.
Lorraine and I are part of the SCEP, and Jeff, part
Yeah.
of the SCEPUS Economic Development Committee, and we've
Mhm.
been talking about how do we have a downtown? How do we make Highway 30 not
Yes.
Highway 30? How do we have this pedestrian-friendly mixed-use environment, draws in small locally owned businesses and provide a wide variety of services and retail options? That would be so fantastic. Talk about it.
And so maybe maybe in the future, the city wants to look at specific actions that can support development of that downtown. And that's things that the city might apply, say, to the state, like TGM for grants, that kind of thing. It's not like I'm saying anything revolutionary here.
Right.
But
The TGM.
transportation growth management, it's,
you.
sorry, no worries. It's with the state. So that can be one of the outcomes of this is identification of that action, which I'm sure as Laurie, it's already on Laurie's mind, but maybe we can.
After this project.
After this project, yes, you can't
And then
handle making
did-
it
I
downtown.
think Jeff had a.
In what way does Beaverton, is it considered not to have a downtown? Because I always considered the Broadway area and the area between the tracks and up around the library to be their downtown, and it's
where the
very
bakery was.
walkable.
Super.
Well, I think it's been made very walkable. I'd heard, you know, and this might have been 10 years ago, that Beaverton really struggled with where its core was, and that they'd done a lot of work around that. And so my colleague knows, you know, she lived that, so knows that in ways that I don't. So I think that Beaverton has made some very deliberate effort at achieving that sense of pedestrian-friendly center.
Ben,
I have one question.
you need a microphone, Lynn. Hold on.
Sing a couple songs. Hi, Len Wagner. I have one question about the airport, and that is, how would we prevent a major user from coming in and becoming the giant, the gorilla in the room? Okay, I mean, we zoned for it. It's ready to go. It's serviceable. So when Boeing comes in and wants to build weapons of war, or when Lockheed comes in and wants to build something, can we prevent them? The answer is, I don't think so.
No, I mean, if the use fits what's listed in the zoning code for that, you know, that zoning district, we can't prevent that.
Right. So what I'm saying is that in this entire process, that's an overwhelming set of factors. Okay. I mean, tomorrow or the next day or 6 months from now or 2 years from now, some massive corporation could come to us, which would then do the impact with traffic, schools, whatever else. Okay. And obviously, most of that employment is probably going to come out of the Portland area, which means that they're going to and through the town. We don't have any kind of a system to exit people out of this area. So we're going to be caught up. Okay. And so for all of this planning process, I think we're looking at something without looking at the monster. It's already been created. We have to address it.
And, you know, as part of the work that was done as part of the last UGB expansion, that was talked through at length. What should those permitted uses be? You know, and they do have to be airport compatible.
Correct.
And that's not to say that some of these larger industries wouldn't be. It's just this was also why there was a requirement on the east side of the airport for the conceptual master plan that's required for that whole area to show how two 20 to 30 acre parcels would be retained, to show how two 50 acre parcels would be retained, so that initially, it's not to say that the lots couldn't be combined later, but initially it had to show how it would be platted that way. And it is being platted that way. And so that was trying to get at that. Now, as we're looking at the development code language moving forward as part of the new economic opportunities analysis process, they will identify industries that are well suited for SCAPUS, and we can look at that code language again. But I wouldn't say that we've just open the gates and anything can come. These things were thought through pretty significantly at the last time the code was
Right.
set and the
Yes.
comprehensive plan policies were made.
Right. But again, it's still airport related and it could be massive. And, Boeing doesn't do little things and Lockheed doesn't do little things and Martin Marietta doesn't do little things.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of companies, and they may say, oh, we'd like to be here because whatever that because is.
Right. And then you get into that balance, right, of having the large industry versus having the small,
Yep,
kind of mom and
correct.
pop shops. But when you have that large industry, you're probably also drawing, perhaps you could support more restaurants, perhaps you could support more local retail. And so maybe there's a balance there, and all these things can work together and not be, in opposition of one another. Depends on what it is.
Thank you, Lori. Brian.
Understand what if I understand what Len's saying, I don't think he's questioning that it would be a good thing or that it could be opted. What I think he's saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, Len, that our plan should assume that we're going to have a major influx of employment. Is that what you're trying to say? Len?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think we get to that section next, right?
Yeah, we'll be talking about the economic opportunities analysis in the future. And yeah, I mean, the UGB expansion was predicated on thousands of jobs coming. That's why 350 acres came in. Now, the first two phases have now been platted, and it's available, and hopefully we do get some good industry, out here around the airport. But we're still waiting to see that.
I have a funny question, and it probably should be understood, but maybe I don't understand it. So if once we do the economic analysis and we predict that thousands of jobs will be coming in, does that go back to the housing needs analysis? Are those two separate things? Do they stand alone?
They're separate things. Obviously there's some interaction, and let me temper your expectations. We're not talking about 8,000 new employees.
I don't want
It would
that, and I
be
didn't think.
very, very hard to justify that.
Okay.
So we're
You just said
talking
two.
about,
There's that too.
we're talking more like about 2,000. And so what if that only takes up a third of your vacant land? Well, you've got vacant land where you could have more employment than is foreseen in the economic opportunities analysis. Economists call that an exogenous event, where you have a big employer who comes in who is unexpected, and brings more employment to the community. And what would cause that? Well, we'll get into this next time, but what would cause that here is more the OMIC than anything. I mean, to be honest, many communities have a big airport or have an airport. I'm not sure what would bring an airport user, to Scappoose rather than some of the other airports. And frankly, airport uses can be difficult. There are not necessarily a lot of businesses that want to locate where you have to be an airport industry. It can be a barrier to development. And so because airports are regulated oftentimes by the FAA and so on and so forth. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of different considerations. Even if the EOA doesn't say we're going to have 5,000 new employees, but you've got land to support that kind of thing, that could still happen. And then what we're doing with the project more broadly with the urban reserves is we're saying, what is the city going to do, when not all the land, but when the land in the community is developed and you have other land needs. In other words, meet needs that are unmet. And maybe that happens in 15 years, maybe that happens in 25 years, but it happens sometime in the future. Well, the urban reserves say, and we're going to grow here, or we're going to grow here, or we're going to grow there. So they make your future urban growth boundary expansion, whenever that is, easier because you've said where you're going to grow. And as we get into the urban growth boundary expansion, you'll understand so much more of what I'm talking about here, and you'll be boggled by the complexity of some parts of it. And then sometime later, glad that Scappoose established urban reserves, because it's so much easier later.
Is it not true? Is it not true that many of the airports in the northwestern section of Oregon are already maxed out? If you have a private plane, you cannot get into Aurora, you cannot get into PDX, you cannot get into Troutdale. There might be some places in Clark County. I think there is, but you know, we've got all of this. You can't get big businesses into those airports either.
And so, you know, that's growth of hangars. That's a great thing to have at an airport. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I would think that Scappoose may really excel with, is that kind of thing. But that's not necessarily looking at a ginormous airport manufacturer. Or, you know, even something like Garmin. Does Garmin want to have, because they're aviation related, they can often locate at airports. Are they going to come and develop a very big thing here in Scappoose? I mean, maybe, but you're more likely to get more of the aviation type uses that you're talking about. And so having land at your airport for your hangars and those kind of things.
But a big garment could go anywhere in the US too.
Indeed, it can.
Yeah.
And we see that happen all the time. So I'm just trying to, you know, temper some expectations just a little bit and say there are ways that some of those things can happen outside of your EOA. Having the OMIC come in has really changed, you know, since 2010, what Scappoose's opportunities are. We'll talk about that a lot more at next meeting. I feel like I'm drifting.
Thank you, Beth. I think we're moving to next steps.
We're only moving there if comments on the draft vision statement have wrapped up. So happy to continue talking about the draft vision statement. Any further edits? No, it's all good. These are all great questions. They are all interlinked. So happy to continue entertaining thoughts, reflections, and comments.
Kim has a
Please.
poem.
Yeah, just a quick question on the process with the vision statement. Are we going to have like an iterative session each meeting? Are we going to revisit this 2 more times? What's the plan?
Yeah, so this is the meeting where you'll review the draft vision statement, and then I think we do come back to you with a final vision statement after some outreach, which I'll describe in the next steps. I don't recall when exactly.
Yeah, and I don't know that the next meetings for Echo Northwest 3J are really centered on the EOA. So I wasn't sure if we were coming back with this. We will have a survey open to gain feedback from the community on their review of the vision statement. And that's part of the reason I'll be at the farmers market this weekend with a booth, is to just sort of, you know, make connections with the community where they're already at. Perhaps, you know, these are folks that wouldn't normally come to, you know, a public meeting to share their thoughts and things. So hoping to get some good feedback this weekend. And then also there was strong interest in from the planning commissioners and city council work session last night to have a city booth at the Adventure Fest in September to also get some feedback and just to spread the word about the project as well. So we'll be doing that as well.
Yeah, so I guess I would just say like, I don't think it's necessary to like wordsmith this every time we get together. But I would ask maybe we wait to finalize it until the process is near complete so that all of the steps that we do take can continue to inform the direction that that statement takes.
Kim, are you saying the overall 50-year plan process or the visioning process?
Or the vision statement itself.
Yeah.
It's the statement, I think.
Well, I guess I would suggest that the vision statement is finalized at the conclusion of the 50-year vision process so that all of the steps we take in the visioning process can be considered in the statement. Was that the plan or was it different?
Do you want to frame it differently than that? Or is that your understanding as well? My understanding was that we were going to try to establish the vision statement more or less because it's going to help guide other portions of the work. Okay.
Yeah, I think that was how it was organized. Yeah.
Okay. And so would it make sense though, maybe that we have the survey open for a little bit longer, the survey on the vision statement and certainly through Adventure Fest, and maybe try to do some outreach to underrepresented communities before we close out that statement?
Yeah, we certainly can. You know, it was just last night that there was desire to be at the Adventure Festival in
Right.
September. So with that, then we would certainly want to keep the vision survey open through any sort of outreach we do around the draft vision statement.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
I think we're ready.
Perfect. Be her job.
I think we've reached the end of our agenda.
Oh, I thought we were doing next steps.
We are under next steps right now. I guess we didn't fully explain. I'm sorry. We are going around in circles here. As Lori had mentioned earlier and just now, she will be at the farmers market on Saturday. There's going to be a booth and we're going to have the draft vision statement up on some poster boards. We're also going to share out with the community what we heard from them through the online survey and the community conversations, etc. So it's a little bit of reporting out what we heard and then sharing what we did with that information. And as mentioned, there was interest in also having that same booth set up at the Adventure Festival in September to also meet people where they're at, and also hopefully get a broader cross section of the community, folks that, as Lori said, might not want to just show up to a open house on a weeknight. So we'll be doing that. And then also, as mentioned, we do have this vision survey. It is live. It is another opportunity to review the statement online and provide written feedback on the statement. I have the link here. It is also posted to the project webpage, and we will have the QR code scannable at the booth at the farmers market on Saturday and all of the materials that we have for that event. Yes.
Will this QR code be in the water bill?
Do we have that in the water bill?
That'd be a great idea. You'd touch a lot of people.
So the water bill contains the newsletter. Newsletter is ran out of City Hall on the 13th of the month.
Good catch.
So we can catch it for next month. So it won't hit accounts till August 25th.
Oh.
So we can make that
Yeah,
one.
we can, yeah, because the survey will be open through September, mid-September.
We also added a Instagram today, so we can put that out there as well. And Facebook page, the normal places.
What about putting the QR code at like the library and at Fred Meyer and stuff like that?
Well, that's what I was going to suggest is sharing this graphic with the usual suspects so it can go out on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Beth has a line item here.
Anais just covered my line item.
Okay, I didn't know.
All
She
good
stole,
with that.
she stole your thunder. I gotcha.
No, she did, the next steps. We're happy with that.
So going on to announcements, our next meeting is Tuesday, August 9th. And I'll go through all of them. Tuesday, August 9th, August 30th, City Council and Planning Commission check-in, September 6th, Meeting Tuesday, September 27th, Tuesday, November 1st, City Council Planning and Commission check-in December 5th, and January 10th, 2023. Then Farmers Market, again, Lori will be at the Farmers Market on July 23rd. We are what, 34 minutes ahead of schedule. Pat will be so proud of me.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Everyone online.
thanks. Good night. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us.